Hello, everybody. It is time to ask a question. Do you know what day it is? If you have a phone or a calendar, I'm sure you already know what day it is. But if you are a long-time watcher of this channel, then I'm sure that you are very excited for what this video is. Because, ladies and gentlemen, today is the last day of the year 2025, which means Clubstep Studios will now look back on all of the videos made throughout the past year. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. It can be the one, the only Clubstep Studios channel rewind of 2025. Now, if you are new to the channel and you haven't been around that long, Clubstep Studios Channel Rewind is the time where I get to look back. We all get to reflect on all the games we played this year, the videos, why I played what I played, what my thoughts on the games were, and maybe some juicy details that you will have never known. You can only find it in one place, and that is the Clubstep Studios Channel Rewind. Now, with that introduction out of the way, let us begin. As you can see here, I have my channel page with the videos tab dated exactly 1 year. You can see that the channel rewind from last year is exactly a year old. And not only that, but this here is exactly 11 months ago. I made this on New Year's Day. I made this New Year's Eve, so you can imagine the connection there. So, starting from the channel rewind of last year, let us move on to what we have in store for this year. So, first off, immediately, Bioshock Infinite is the game we played with 5 parts. Now, Bioshock Infinite was an interesting game. Um, I felt that it was very, very different from the other Bioshocks, especially because this took place in the air while the other two took place deep below the sea. So the setting was different, the characters were significantly different, and the ending was I was confused. It left me quite confused. I kind of understood it. I also kind of didn't because the game is it's centered around the many possibilities of Booker DeWitt potentially also being Comstock, who is the main villain in the game, of how they both are together and how Elizabeth, who was apparently Booker's daughter, was also Comstocks at the same time. It's meant to show all of the whole multiverse of possibilities, which I'm usually not a fan of multiverse plots. I feel like choices in a multiverse plot don't matter because you could either go back to a time where that choice wasn't made or it it feels like it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And very few stories do multiverse plots correctly, very few. And I'm not saying that with a few good plots in mind. But overall, I the only thing with Bioshock Infinite that I really didn't like was how limited your inventory was. You can only hold two, I think it was two weapons. It might have been two at a time. It's very few, but I kept having to throw weapons away and then pick them up later. It was not the most enjoyable. And in the older Bioshocks, you were able to hold like 8 or 9 weapons, and you were able to upgrade all of them. I didn't feel like it felt as rewarding to play in Bioshock Infinite, but it did have its own charm. Booker and Elizabeth's dynamic was actually really, really cool to see. I liked the dynamic they had. And I think overall it's a solid game. If you're a Bioshock diehard, then yeah, definitely go play it. But overall, I wanted to put a cap on the Bioshock trilogy, so I did it immediately at the start of the year with Bioshock Infinite. Now for my next one. This one was supposed to be way further down on my queue. This is the original Witcher. So, little known fact, I was on a winter sale last year in 2024. I was able to get all three of the Witcher games for less than $30, all in a bundle. Frankly, it was spectacular. Now, I was so intrigued by The Witcher, and I was already hyping about it since the fourth game was the first trailer dropped for the fourth game, and I was already excited to start playing it. So I thought, I should get on this. Feel like feel like this is gonna be a good series. It was originally pretty low on my queue, but I bumped it up quite a bit because I wanted to see what this game had to offer. And my initial worry with playing The Witcher, and I was anxious of this, I would play it, and keep in mind, this game came out in 2007, I think? 2007 or 2008. Games that are usually old really do tend to show their age. The game crashes, it's buggy, the just don't process at all. I can't record it on my computer because of some software issue. But thank goodness my worries were unfounded because this game, despite being so old, worked very, very well. I had very few crashes. I did have some, especially in this episode, but I had very few crashes, and all of the software issues were minimal. I was able to play the game and have a pretty good time. And it was a long series, 25 whole parts. And you can see these are some pretty decently long episodes here. There was a lot to The Witcher, and I loved it. I absolutely enjoyed it so much. The open world was nice. The chapters was very the chapter structure was pleasing to my brain, and I love the story. I love Geralt's story. I felt that the gameplay was surprisingly intuitive. Like I first tried it in like the very first episode, and I was like, this kinda is a little archaic, but surprisingly no, it was quite intuitive and it really made you have to think of how to play the game. A lot of the crashes tended to happen around the end, especially during certain missions where a lot of enemies were being loaded in at once. I remember that did my game in so many times, and I was like, "Oh my goodness." And then I literally had to look up why my game was crashing so much, and I remembered it was because I had way too many save files. So I had to get rid of a whole bunch of save files that I've kept just to make sure that the game had enough processing power to run the actual game. But overall, The Witcher was so much fun. And even though the game was so old, and I was scared that it would show his age, it was still very enjoyable. Now, a few little known facts. I titled some of these videos differently, specifically this one, Geralt of Rivia Origin. Now, this is a direct reference to a show that I watch, and I have watched many times. And if you are an uber nerd like me, I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about. My Hero Academia. You see, My Hero Academia has a few episodes that have interesting titles. It's whenever a character has their beginning and origin story, whenever it shows their backstory and either why they want to become a hero or how they got to this point, they call it person's name, you know, Izuku Midoriya, Shoto Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo, comma, origin. And I was kind of ripping off of that, so I called it Geralt of Rivia Origin. And overall, I thought it was I thought it was pretty cool. So that was one thing. Aside that, honestly, a lot of these titles are my standard. I throw in a quip, like I have my plant problems, the man of many jobs. Why can't we be friends is a reference to a song. Sometimes I just have some also in Level War, that's another statement. Sometimes I have just a really basic description of what I'm getting myself stuck into, stretching my budget, lost in the swamp, making connections. That's one thing about how I title my videos. I tend to follow a pretty standard formula. I make a reference, I talk about what's happening, or I just do a commonly heard phrase that is pertinent to whatever I'm doing. But that is The Witcher. So much fun. It took me about a month, maybe even more than that to do. Now the next one, which is an equally long game, almost, the 23 part Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Justice for All, or Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, sorry, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney 2, as I called it here. I couldn't type Justice for All. It was too many characters, so I had to settle with 2 for each of them, which is fine, gets the point across. And I was kind of, again, I had my doubts. I thought this game would just not be anywhere near as good as the first game. I was wrong. Not only was it as good in the first game, I think it might just be better. Because I'm gonna be honest. First up, I love the new characters they brought in. Franziska von Karma was so much fun to to voice because I voice all of the characters in my Ace Attorney videos, and I have unique voices for all of them. It's what makes it so much fun to play. But I've voiced every character, including Franziska von Karma, who I put my very best Russian accent for that one. You can watch the videos and see how well I did. Miles Edgeworth, my usual calm, stoic voice, except for when he loses himself. I try to do a high-pitched voice for Pearl, but I don't think I did very well. But honestly, I feel like that's the charm. It's not actually being good voice acting. It's cool because I'm able to voice so many characters at once. And even if I'm not good at it, it's the feeling that counts. At least that's what I tell myself. Um, you can probably see here just by reading the titles, I still have my typical titling formula. This is a reference to a song, Brothers in Arms. It's also a common saying. Um, no reaction is a common saying that people say. Um, I have prepared for trouble and make it double. I don't even need to say what reference that is. Panic, panic! Exclamation point at the circus. Very obvious reference there as well. Um, I will say though, where this game certainly shined was in its fourth case. I hit my computer on accident. The first 2 episodes were fine. The first episode is the tutorial, shows you the ropes. The second episode is usually the one where Maya gets herself in trouble. It's also where you really get opened to whatever the game is throwing at you. The third episode is usually more filler, in my opinion. It's usually a little just kind of out there. Like in the first game, you had the movie studio, and this one, you have the circus. And then the fourth episode is usually what drives you home, and that's the end of the game. Well, it certainly did drive me home, the fourth episode, because oh my gosh, that was the single best Ace Attorney chapter ever so far. I've never had more shock, awe, fun, a whole whirlwind of emotions from playing episode 4 or the fourth turnabout, whatever you call it, in Phoenix Wright 22. Because, oh my goodness, I was at the edge of my seat. This does not happen very often. I've played games for so long, I can kind of see what's gonna happen, but this took me for quite the loop, and I recommend watching. I think it starts here. I think it starts here. Could be mistaken, but it's so much fun. You should definitely play it. Next up is Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. I played that was 4 hours and 39 minutes. I remember I told my family I'm going to be upstairs for many hours and I'm going to need a lot of time to I'm going to need a lot of time, so please don't call on me if unless it's absolutely needed. Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 was, if I'm honest, kind of a letdown. It had its moments, but the villain, if you could really call it the villain, wasn't really that good. That being Doughy. He kind of started crashing out of nowhere, and I know he's supposed to have like multiple personalities, and I know this was like supposed to be part of why he turned out the way he did in the game, but he literally went from being like this jolly guy, just this jolly, happy-go-lucky guy in his little house in a little safe haven, and then he just started crashing out, like out of nowhere. And I'm like, what is happening? And I'm not even the only person that shares the sentiment. A lot of people also thought the same thing. In my opinion, chapter 3 is the best Poppy Playtime chapter so far, because Catnap was scary. Catnap didn't say anything, he let all of his actions do the talking. I feel like Doughy is the exact opposite. Doughy wasn't scary. Doughy wasn't emotionally conflicting. He just talked a lot. And then he just got angry for no reason. And then he started trying to kill you. So when you killed him, you're supposed to feel bad when he kind of reverts back to his doughy self for a little while and then dies. It was kind of a letdown. Chapter 3 is still, in my opinion, the best Poppy Playtime chapter because, like I said again, Catnap is a truly terrifying enemy. Like whenever that red smoke showed up, or whenever you saw him lurking around, it legitimately made me feel a pretty strong sense of fear. And I wish that we had that with chapter 4. A lot of it was just me crashing out because I was stuck on a puzzle, and it was because and Doughy just wasn't that good of a I don't know if you could really call it a twist villain, but I feel like they could have done it a little bit better. Those are my thoughts. Now, Dying Light 2. Now, if you remember, I think it was a year or two ago. I don't remember exactly, but I played the first Dying Light on a what game do you want me to play? It was recommended to me by a very good friend of mine who put many hours into the first game. Now, the first game was lacking in a few things. It was lacking in my opinion, it was lacking in really a good, it was lacking in story and it was lacking in world building. Too many things were happening without real nuance or really any significant context. You were kind of sent on a mission because something happened somewhere that way. You had to go that way, see what's up, and then do it. And the moment I got a gun, like just the moment I picked up a gun in like the final act of the game, it was just over. I literally said those words the moment I picked up one of the assault rifles that the one of the villains henchmen dropped. I picked up, I'm like, man, this game is over. All of a sudden, I'm not hitting anybody with metal pipes anymore. I'm like, I'm about to roll in and do work. Well, Dying Light 2 has solved those problems because this was definitely 100% an improvement from the first game. I am delighted to tell you guys that because sequels aren't usually that good. But I guess we've gotten lucky with our sequels so far with Ace Attorney 2 and now Dying Light 2 with another sequel improvement. The combat was way more intuitive in this game. The platforming was just as fun as always. The story and the mission had me quite intrigued, and it was overall quite a fun time. And I'm sure you still see my titling format. I have a reference. There's a zombie on your lawn, a long day of splashing bandits, among other things. But I really did love. I especially really liked the people in this story. Dying Light 1 didn't really do it for me because the people just didn't really have that much staying power for me. They didn't like stay in my head afterwards. They just kind of were very forgettable. But man, I still think about the guy with New Hope Radio. I still think about that. I still think about Luwan, that fiery personality that it's like, man, she's so cool. It was quite a It's not a lot of people, but I do remember having quite a lot of fun just doing those side missions. Like I don't usually if I like a game, you can always tell if I like a game because I will do the side missions if I like the game. If I don't like the game, I'll only do the main story and just an attempt to just get it over with as fast as possible. But if I truly like a game, I'll do the side missions just so I can stay there longer and have more fun, which I wasn't able to do I was not able to do hardly nearly all of them. I was nowhere near close to doing all of them, but I did as many as I felt like and had a lot of fun. So I would recommend Dying Light 2. Very enjoyable game. Next up is Crash Bandicoot 3 or Crash Bandicoot Warped. Not a sequel improvement. I know this is the old Crash Bandicoot, the one I have for the thumbnail, but I did play on the Insane Trilogy version, which was the newer one. I can't get I can't exactly get my hands very easily on a copy of the original Crash Bandicoot 3 for the PS1. Not the easiest thing to do. So I played on the Insane Trilogy version, which I had on disc yeah, I had on disc years ago, years and years and years and years ago. I had all three of the Crash Bandicoot games in the trilogy on a disc. That being the they called it N-Sane Trilogy Pack, but that's what I played it on. And I figured why buy another game? Why buy another game? You can just it's free. I already had it. I've had it for many years. I might as well do it. So I made this as a four-part series. The first game will always be my favorite. I just don't think it can ever really beat the first game. There really isn't much to report, if I'm being honest. It was kind of dull. I did have another. I did make a title to reference some of my other titles with the third Cortex Downfall, which is a reference to my other two ones, where the finale title is usually always something to do with Cortex and Downfall. For my next game, I did Elder Scrolls 3. Now, Elder Scrolls is special because it's the only series that I don't actually do a finishing run on. I do one-offs. I make one video, it's usually about an hour long, and it's about each Elder Scrolls game. I've only done up to Elder Scrolls 3 so far, Morrowind. Oblivion is coming. Not going to be on remaster though. It's going to be the original Oblivion. And if you guys don't watch Channel Rewind, you're not going to know that. Only people that watch a Channel Rewind are going to know this information. So you're going to want to stick around. But Oblivion is coming soon, but for now, Morrowind. I enjoyed it. I was honestly just kind of wandering around, just taking a look at the scenery. Luckily, I wasn't stuck in some dank dungeon. I was actually able to go outside and look around. I made it to a town, and then my game absolutely fried on me. Like, literally, it fried. It blue screened. I was lucky that this recording was even saved. Honestly, I probably would have enjoyed it if my game didn't blue screen halfway through, but other than that, it's a good time. Next up is Stardew Valley. Oh boy. I had this on the queue for a while. Stardew Valley is a game that doesn't really have an ending. It just kind of goes on forever. So with games that do that, and I have played a few of those, I tend to make a goal for myself, and then once I reach the goal, I just end it. Or once I feel like the game has stayed its course. Like I've seen the game, I have I've seen the game, I know what it provides, I know what it does, I know what the ordeal is. Instead of doing like a 30, 40, 50 part series, I just say, hey, 5 parts, it's good enough. I usually save the bulwark of parts for games that have destinations, goals, and endings. That's not to say I'm selective against games that don't. I really do try to play all sorts of games on this channel. I really do. And I wanted to really branch out, so Stardew Valley, a game that was recommended to me by many friends, and they all said that Stardew Valley was spectacular. So I played it, and it was. It was cute. It's really the first word that comes to mind. It's a cute game. I loved the I love the easygoing pace. I love the I love the feeling where I can just relax. What took me by surprise was honestly this game had combat. Everybody is like, this is a farming sim, and I'm spending most of my time fighting slime monsters in the caverns. I thought that was pretty funny. Now, even though a lot of my time was just cleaning up the farm, planting rudimentary plants, talking to random people, just trying my best to join the Adventurers Guild. I eventually did. That was actually my end goal in part 5 once I did that, I was just kind of like that's it. Overall, it's a lot of fun if you like the farming simulator kind of game. Stardew Valley is for you. It just is. And if you, I'm sure if you play farming simulator games, you already know what Stardew Valley is. I probably don't even need to introduce you to it. But if not, here it is. It's a great candidate for a game you could play and spend many hours on, as my friends have spent thousands of hours on this game. Right, next is Me Side, which I actually learned was pronounced My Side, and I was pronouncing it wrong the entire time. But at this point, I'm just gonna commit. I'm just gonna keep calling it Me Side. So again, this is another game kind of like The Witcher from all the way down here. Me Side was lower in the queue, but I bumped it up because, like I said, this game caught my eye and it was quite intriguing. Because if you may remember, many years ago in the summer of 2022, I played Doki Doki Literature Club, a game that I will profess to my grave is one of the greatest games ever made, and it has certainly changed my outlook on life itself. Now, how in the world could a game like that do that? You ought to play it yourself and find out how. But I was awfully reminded of DDLC when I saw Me Side. And I knew it wouldn't be really much of anything like it, but I told myself, it's been quite a while since I played a game like this. I feel like we could give it a try, just for fun. Let's just give it a whirl. And I did, and I had a lot of fun. The gameplay was incredibly intuitive. Mita is scary as a villain. She's terrifying. There were I did not expect it. I didn't even think it was possible. But there were some moments in that game, like the repeating hallway, the dark room with like the original Mita, genuinely struck fear into me. So, hey, good job, Misa, for that. Because, again, not many horror games can pull that off. And if they do, it's usually, it's not that I'm scared of the enemy that's in front of me, it's that I'm scared of losing my progress, which is not a good thing you want to place your fear in, honestly. It should always be, I'm super scared of this threat that is coming at me. When it's a lot of horror games these days are usually just kind of like, if I die here, I'm gonna have to go all the way back to this point, and I'm gonna have to do it all again. I'm gonna have to run away from this threat again, potentially die and go back again. Please just let me make it out. Misai did not fall into that trap, thank goodness, and it instead ended up being quite enjoyable. So it's very good for Misai. And you can still see my titling antics, a meta between worlds. I don't even know what that's a reference to. There is a piece of, I don't know if it's a piece of literature or art, but it is called a something between worlds. So I filled in the blank with meta. I thought it was really funny. Now for my next game, Nine Souls. Oh boy. Nine Souls is a hidden gem. I will say it again, Nine Souls is a hidden gem. Not enough people know this game even exists. And it makes me so sad. This game is spectacular. I the people that watched my Nine Souls videos were absolutely D1 enjoyers of Nine Souls. I got a few comments on this specific video saying I should go back for another ending. Of course, maybe. Don't know. Maybe in the future. But as it stands, it's so much fun playing Nine Souls. It was an absolute masterclass in the it was an absolute masterclass in how to do combat, really. The combat was so intuitive. The perfect parry system it had was incredibly pleasing, and it didn't feel like every time I tried to do it I was risking death. The bosses were so much fun, just about all of them. There were very few bosses in Nine Souls that I didn't have a fun time fighting, but again, very few. Egong was a spectacular final boss. Lady Ethereal from, I think it was this part. Was it this part? Lady Ethereal? Maybe. One of the parts, Lady Ethereal, I was so awesome. I absolutely loved how I also love the NPCs in the game, especially Schwan Schwan, the little kid who you end up saving from dying in the opening introduction. He becomes an NPC and he gives you stuff and he gives you dialogue. He is is such a fun person. And I absolutely loved talking with him, doing his quest, all of that. I loved the ending of the game. I even loved the ending I got. Even if it wasn't really the true ending, it was still a good ending. Just about everything about this game was really incredible. There's really not a lot that wasn't good. I mean, there were a few times where I feel like the areas could have been better. They could have been a little bit more intuitive. I got lost quite a bit, especially in the repository, which was one of the boss's areas. I felt like getting to certain areas was also quite challenging and even on some cases annoying. So I think that's really all of the negatives, though. Everything else was just absolutely spectacular. So definitely play Nine Souls. 100%. Next up is, oh boy, this is a real 180, isn't it? Corpse Party. I watched this video a month ago. The video was titled "A Compilation of the Most Disturbing Games in History." Now I'm thinking to myself when I'm watching this, oh boy, these must be games that are like either canceled, banned. I've never heard of these games before. Corpse Party was on the list. And I thought to myself, huh, interesting. Yeah, that's how quite gruesome this game really is. Corpse Party is split into 5 chapters, with each chapter having many different endings as well as many different bad endings. So, chapter like 5, for example, has like 2 or 3 actual endings, but like it has 20 extra bad endings, which are bad choices that result in a person's death, which put a stop to the timeline. And when I say that this game like messes with you, it really does. Just I think it was either in this part or this part, either part one or part two. One of the characters immediately gets killed, and there's absolutely no way to save them. And and they were shown for quite a lot in the opening bits, so you don't even think they're going to die, but they do. And there are so many times in this game where you think, oh my gosh, did I make the right choice? Is this going to hurt me later in the chapter? What in the world's going to happen? And then there's, of course, what's usually the fun bit is that once you reach an ending, I went back into the chapter because this could have been a 5 part game, but the reason why it's a 15-part game is because I went back and I got every single one of the endings. And a lot of those endings were actually quite difficult to get. Even some of the bad endings, you had to actually do a lot of prep just to die. It was quite interesting. But overall, it was a very fun time. It was fun, it was gruesome, it was quite sad. It was frankly a whirlwind of emotions. So if that type of game intrigues you, Corpse Party is for you. However, if you're a little bit on the softer side, like I am, then you could watch someone play it and experience the same shock secondhand. Now for my next game, which I actually played in conjunction with. I played in conjunction with another game, and you can see that quite obviously. Alan Wake with Doom: The Dark Ages. We're gonna talk about Alan Wake first, since it's only a six-parter, and it's quite honestly the first one that showed up. So, Alan Wake. I've heard mixed things about this game. Before I bought it and before I started playing it, I heard mixed things. Some people were saying that the gameplay was way too boring. Some people were saying the story wasn't all that good. A lot of people were saying that it was like a hidden gem and an absolute masterpiece. So, of course, there's really only one way to settle mixed reviews. Play it yourself. See what you think. And I am more in the middle with Alan Wake. It had a lot going for it, and it went with it. I loved the story. I loved the villain. I loved the way that I love the way that the gameplay sort of mimicked how, first off, Alan Wake himself is going and absolutely going insane, and second, how this whole curse really stems from him and is kind of seeping out into the outside world. What I didn't love was Alan Wake's character. He was kind of dull in one note. Surprisingly dull in one note for someone who's supposed to be a very dynamic writer. And some of the enemies were kind of annoying to fight. And whenever they showed up, I'm like, oh, not these guys again. Aside from very sparse things, it was overall pretty decent. It's not anything I'd really write home about, like Nine Souls or Phoenix Wright 2 or The Witcher, but it's solid. It stuck it stuck to its strengths pretty well. It didn't try to be something it wasn't. A lot of games, there are quite a games that fall into that trap. Poppy Playtime 4, for example. Um, it didn't try to make any big logical leaps. It made quite a bit of logical leaps, but all of them made a lot of sense, really. By the end of the game, I was like, oh, this is why this is what's happening. Or even throughout the game, I'm like, oh, this makes sense, even if I'm totally thrown for a loop in the beginning, and then it's like, oh, okay, it all comes together nicely. So I would play Alan Wake if you like games that have that sort of psych horror aspect, or for games that have that bit where you kind of challenge what in the world is happening, and it's like you want to figure out how the game's going to turn out. I know a lot of people do enjoy those games, so Alan Wake for you. However, I've heard the sequel was better, so I'll have to put that to the test. Maybe next year. Next up, Doom: The Dark Ages, which again played in conjunction with Elden Ring Night Rain. Doom: The Dark Ages was it was good and it wasn't. I was so sad to notice, but the music didn't really work for me this time around. It made me quite sad. Doom Eternal and especially Doom 2016, the music was unforgettable. The type of music you'd be bumping over and over again when you're working out at the gym. I didn't really get to experience that with Doom: The Dark Ages. It was honestly probably the saddest letdown of the game. I didn't really have a feel for the story. I know it's supposed to take place in the middle of the Doomslayer's story, and the really sad part is like you can tell that it was just kind of shoved into the middle of the timeline. It didn't feel seamless to me. That Doom: The Dark Ages was just kind of shoved in the timeline. Many things were being hinted at. There were many plot points that was like, man, where did this ever show up in Eternal? Or why was this never really mentioned? And what in the world is happening? I was like, even the setting. I was stuck in a setting I had no idea either even existed, and I had no idea was even possible, and it felt confusing. But those are the negatives. Let's move on to the positives. First up, the Shield, spectacular edition. I thought the Shield was a really good, innovative decision because we could go for the same shotguns and grapple hooks like we did last time. And those are tried and true, but the Shield with the Shield Bash, the perfect parries, that elevated the gameplay quite a lot. And it made it really fun. So even though Doom: The Dark Ages may be lacking in a bit of a story and music, it certainly was not lacking in gameplay, which is quite literally Doom's biggest strength. So thank goodness they got that part, because if they didn't, then it would just be a disgrace. But I'm happy to report it's not. I really loved the gameplay. It was honestly what kept me coming back. I was kind of at the point where I'm like, I don't even care what's happening in the story anymore. Just let me at them. Just let me at the enemies. Let me just let me roll in with the shield bash. Let me pull off some quick shots with the super shotgun, and just that's just it. Overall, it was quite fun, but it doesn't live up to Doom Eternal, which is still my favorite of the Doom games. I think Doom Eternal is still better because that game just had everything. Next up is Elden Ring Night Rain. I'm gonna sit back a little bit. We're gonna be in here for a bit. Elden Ring Night Rain was the most unique Souls experience I've ever had ever, and I feel like a lot of us Souls fans can agree. It was very different. With 23 whole parts, it was really interesting. And there were a lot of times where I was just throwing myself against a wall, trying over and over and over again to just get a good loadout, get some good luck, get some good teammates, and finally we can just beat this boss. I mean, that's what happened over with here, where we beat Adel, the Baron of Night. That boss took me many hours. In fact, it even took me multiple days. And I remember just like I said, I just remember throwing my head against the wall, just being like, "What is going on?" But eventually, we finally pulled it through. We beat the Night Lord. Very difficult boss, but I had some pretty good teammates, and it really is what it boils down to. If you're not playing Night Rain solo, teammates matter. They matter a lot. Get good teammates and you have a easy breezy game. If you get bad teammates, then oh boy, you're in it. But honestly, that sort of roulette of good teammates or bad teammates made the game quite fun. Sometimes you get a teammate that could carry you and your whole team all the way to the final boss, and other times you get a teammate that quits immediately when you join. I mean, you never know. And of course you yourself, I mean, or at least for me, you never wanted to quit because you get penalized for it, which I don't even know what it does, but if it's like other games, then like it revokes your ability to play for a few hours. And since I didn't want to do that, I wanted to keep grinding. I just kind of, whenever both of my teammates would just leave immediately, or one of my teams just leave immediately, I would just try to stick it through, and then just if I realized there was no hope, I just quickly just let it go. I really did like Elden Ring Night Rain. I feel like it's a really good experience for people that don't really dig the Souls formula as much, but still kind of want to get into the hype. It's like the perfect middle ground. So overall, very enjoyable game, and I'd recommend it for anybody with friends. Unlike me. I'm kidding. Next up is the biggest, I don't want to say waste, but this is the biggest sunk cost of the year. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. If I could give this game an award, I would definitely give it, like I just said, the biggest sunk cost award. Because this four-parter that was 4 to 5 hours was $40. I spent $40 on this. And by the time it was done, I didn't feel like it was worth it. In fact, I literally titled all of that for nothing. I felt like I was playing FNAF Ruin again, and Ruin was free. I just paid for a slightly upscaled Ruin with an ending that was about as uncharacteristic. That's not the right word. With an ending that was just about as un. What's the word? Jeepers, I'm losing it. But it's unsatisfying. That's the word. Did not feel satisfied with the ending in the slightest. And look, I feel like Scott Cawthon just has a thing for making endings that fall flat. I feel he's done that for years now, but it especially hurt when you paid $40 for it. But other than the ending, the game was pretty good. But it was kind of ruined because the ending was really bad. I think there's another ending than the one I got. There usually is with Scott Cawthon games, but the ending I got fell flat, and I was not happy about it. Next up, Kindergarten 3. Kindergarten 3 is actually a pretty good sequel. It's not as good as Kindergarten 1. In fact, I think it's only slightly better than Kindergarten 2. But it really does feel like just a continuation of the games because the way that Kindergarten structures its games that the first game was set on Monday, the second game on Tuesday, and now Kindergarten 3 is set on Wednesday. Of course, with that line of thinking, I thought, you think there's going to be 5 games, you're going to have a whole week at school. But this really did get to see a lot of my antics, my titles. Storming the lab is a reference to something, except it wasn't storming the lab. I think it was storming something. Jeepers, I know it's a reference. I just forgot. Little Garden of Horrors, obvious reference. Little Shop of Horrors, the musical. Nugget Filled Odyssey, more of a reference to just Odyssey itself. Secret Highway, a bit of a history reference for those who know the Underground Railroad and things like that. Embracing My Inner Florida Man, I feel like that's obvious. That kind of speaks for itself. And even this one, which was more a reference to to my part ones in the other kindergarten games, which is a day in kindergarten, another day in kindergarten, then yet another day in kindergarten. The Price of War is a pretty loose reference to a song called The Price of a Mile, which talks about war, things of that sort. Little references that I hide in these videos. I always And believe me when I tell you, I love when people catch the references. It makes me so happy. I have a lot of fun. Now, oh right, the ending of Kindergarten 3 was pretty nice. Overall, the game was good, and that's just it. It was good. There's nothing to really complain about. There's nothing to really write home about. It was just good. All right, moving on. Visage. Oh boy. Listen, guys. If you want to do a scary game, take notes. Visage. This game absolutely wins for me as the scariest game I played this year. It wins by a mile. It's frankly not even close. I played Visage. Just I wasn't really expecting all that much. I heard it was pretty spooky, and oh man, it was terrifying. Now, the first part was nothing at all. In fact, you could watch the whole first part and be like, what in the heck is he doing? Because the first part, I'm literally walking around the house wondering, what am I supposed to do? It isn't until part two it really picks up, where first off, I actually realize what I'm supposed to be doing. And second, why I'm here and what the whole purpose is. So the main, I guess, formula of Visage is this. The game is split into three distinct chapters. And each chapter follows a person who has died in the house. First chapter, I'm gonna go in the order of the chapters that I played. It's not gonna be in the actual order that it's listed, but I played Raken's chapter, then I played was it was her name Dorothy? Dorothy? Dorothy. It might have been Dorothy. Started with the D. It might have been Dorothy. And the third one was Lucy. I played those three chapters. They all were kind of varying in length. The second one was definitely the longest. And you got to see how did the house transform them, how they died, and what and how you the player are connected to all of it. It's a pretty neat concept. You can see this with titles like Silence of the Raken, obvious reference, and Mirror Mirror, another obvious reference. Witchy Woman, another obvious reference. Don't talk to strangers, pretty common saying. Visage was terrifying, and afterwards, this hour and a half video was actually bonus content because throughout the game, you can unlock VHS tapes, which have labels on them. Labels on them which are titled with things like addiction, regret, um, fear, negative connotating words. So, and once you play all the tapes, you experience all the tapes, then you can reach what is more or less the good ending of the game, where you're finally letting go of what you did wrong. So overall, a really cool game. It's absolutely terrifying, and if you're a horror game enjoyer, if you love psych horror, if you just love all of that stuff, goodness gracious, you should play Visage. It will scare you. 100%. Next up is Silent Hill 2. That's right, the horror game train does not end here. We are still playing. We're still on the horror game train with Silent Hill 2. Now, I don't normally play games out of a series. Usually, the way my brain works, I gotta play, whenever I approach a game, I gotta play its first, like its predecessor, and then I gotta go with two, then three, then four, then whatever. It's just the way I am. Like, sure, I could start with Resident Evil 4, right? Like people say Resident Evil 4 is an amazing game. I could start with Resident Evil 4, but knowing that I'm leaving 3 and 2 and 1 behind just didn't sit right with me. So I played 3, then 2, then 1. I played 1, then 2, then 3, and then I went back to 4. But there are times where I quite literally either am forced into playing a sequel or I do it out of my own volition because I know that the sequel is more or less just a extension of the first game and not actually a continuation. That's the case with Silent Hill 2. I could not get my hands on Silent Hill 1. It was not possible. I tried. But I also knew that Silent Hill 2 is also its own thing, so I decided to keep it there. Now, before I talk about the game, little known fact, Part 5 is titled Fun Adventures in the Psych Ward. I referenced in this part, it was either this part or this part, when I was inside the hospital section for Raken's chapter, I jokingly proclaimed that I would title, I think it was this video, or it might have been this one. I was going to title it Fun Adventures in the Psych Ward. Of course, I actually put it in the description. Let's see. Did I put it in the description for this? Let me just see. No. Might have been this one. Oh, goodness gracious. There it goes again. I gotta scroll all the way back. Hey, let's see. Was it this one? Yep, there it is. Fun Adventures in the
Hello,
Psych.
everybody, and welcome back.
Yes, yes, we know. Fun Adventures in the Psych Ward. I put it in the description for a fun little reference. And I found a place to title it because Silent Hill 2 has a hospital section. So I decided to call it Fun Adventures in the Psych Ward. So things like that. You also have a few more cool references like Into the Pit, reference to Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. Um as well as just my usual antics, like nothing makes sense. But by far the best reference that I think I ever came up with was the finale. It may be out of sight, but never out of mind. Now, pause the video real quick to think. Before I reveal it, pause the video to think, where does this reference come from? What am I referencing here? Well, I'll say congratulations to those who figured it out because I assure you, even if you Googled those exact words, you're going to come up empty of what I'm actually going for here. It may be out of sight, but never out of mind. Those exact words are song lyrics from a song by Beach House called Superstar, where in the chorus, within all the floaty chords and the hypnotic visuals, it says it may be out of sight, but never out of mind. Lyrics I thought were incredibly profound and ended up making it over here into one of the titles in the videos. Now, to talk about Silent Hill 2, the game. Silent Hill 2 is frankly incredible. They really upscaled the original just by just I was just looking at it a while ago. And even for a game that's like usually indie horror games I find are usually a lot more scarier. And even though it was true here, I didn't find myself as scared in Silent Hill 2 as I was to like compare Visage, but that doesn't mean it didn't have its own thrills, and it did have quite a bit of them. I enjoy Silent Hill 2. The ending was phenomenal. It's definitely how you write an ending for this sort of game. So, highly recommend Silent Hill 2. If you like horror or if you like nostalgia, you should play Silent Hill 2. Next up is Scrutinized. Yes, the horror game train continues with Scrutinized. Now, if you know about Scrutinized, then you will know it is one of the single hardest horror games that has ever been made ever. Even though there are two threats in just one standard gameplay loop, they are incredibly, incredibly difficult to deal with. Especially the guy in the white lab coat called Tanner. You have to listen for, I am not joking, the subtlest of noises just to catch him. And even then, you can still miss him. I had to play the game on easy mode and count it as my win when I finally beat the game. I only had to, because the game takes place across 10 whole nights with no checkpoints. Zero checkpoints, 10 whole nights. I could barely, I could barely do five, even with the checkpoints. I managed to beat the easy mode, but I'm like, I am not coming back. Oh my goodness. My strategy actually came about with me finding out a way that I could kind of abuse the game to just win. So actually wanted to let Tanner in because if you let Tanner in while you're not at your computer, he will hide in the closet. Now, Tanner usually has a chance of leaving the closet whenever you're in the computer, and he will stay in the closet whenever you're not. So, once Tanner is in the closet, guaranteed, go to your computer, finish the bare minimum of tasks, and then just stand up and stare at the closet for the rest of the night, all while making sure all your lights are on. If you can do that, you win. And that's how I beat Scrutinized. Definitely not what you should normally do, but it's the way that it was the way that made the most sense to me. So it was the way that I went with. Overall, I didn't really dig it as much. I mean, it was scary, sure, but again, it's just as I said before when I was talking about me side. I was more scared of losing my progress than I was scared of the actual villains. That's not a good thing for a game to be. I wanted to really pull through. I really wanted to be scared for like the fact that what was that noise? Am I safe? Am I gonna get got? Instead, I was scared. I said the scary part was I'm gonna have to do all this again if I die, and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to go through that, so that's why I resulted to playing easy mode. Again, Scrutinize is one of the only games I actually had to play on easy mode since the normal mode was too hard. I think only I can think of one other game, only one other game where I had to do that. That was Mortal Kombat 11. Because oh my gosh, that game is really hard. And if you like really hard games, definitely play Scrutinized. I'm sure you'll like it. But now let's move on to better things. Hollow Knight Silk Song. Oh boy. I was waiting for this for 2 whole years. 2 whole years I've been waiting for this game. And I talked about it. I talked about it at length in my part one for Silk Song, which I titled 2,394 Days. 2,394 days is the exact amount of time as the reveal of Silk Song all the way to that specific day that I uploaded the video. Now, I actually got pretty lucky. I bought the game before the massive store wide crashes happened. Since so many people were trying to buy the game at once, all of the stores, PlayStation, Steam, Xbox, they all crashed. I managed to get it. I managed to score it before the crashes happened, which was incredibly lucky because oh boy. Um I literally reloaded the page and it said it couldn't anymore and I'm like, "Huh, glad my transaction went through in time." But I probably don't really need to talk about how good Silksong is. Frankly, I feel like everybody has said it so many times, but oh my gosh, this game is such an improvement to Hollow Knight. It's actually insane. I was concerned about. I mean, I had some concerns, or very slight, but I did have some concerns of how in the world was it going to improve upon Hollow Knight, which is a game that is within my top 20. But not only that, it just ended up totally surpassing it. The world was so much bigger and grander. Hornet is such a fun character to play with way more mechanics and way more fun, intuitive combat skills than the knight was in the original game. It was so much fun. So much fun. Just exploring. And when a game could pull off not even just the big things, but the little things too, because that's the stuff you remember. I mean, sure, you remember the big things, but what really establishes a game as just absolutely incredible is the little things. doing the deliveries, just exploring the map, seeing what you find, finding a cool mini boss in that one room that you couldn't get to earlier. All of that is just the kind of spectacular that a really good game brings. And as you can see, I'm still at my typical title antics. Hunting High and Low is a reference to an album. It's a reference to an album that's called Hunting High and Low by Aha, the same people that made Take on Me. Let's see. Hornet's Delivery Service is a reference to Kiki's Delivery Service, which is a Studio Ghibli film. Summon the Wave is a reference to a song. Out in the Elements is another reference to a song. I'll Find My Way is another reference to a song. The Mountain Trek was a reference to a story I made many years ago. And then the opening thread, which is a reference to Demon Slayer. Overall, there. Oh, yeah, what is that melody is a reference to a game? Forgot to mention that part. But overall, definitely play Silk Song. It is my opinion, this was the best game I played this year. Without a doubt. This wins. This is my game of the year. I know Claire Obscure Expedition 33 won, and I'm not doubting that Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is a good game, but for me, this is my game of the year. And on that note, let's move on to Ghost of Yote. Ghost of Yote was the biggest game I played this year. 38 parts. Oh boy. Ghost of Yote was really, really good. It really did work as a continuation to Ghost of Tsushima. However, it didn't quite live up to it didn't quite live up to Tsushima, in my opinion. There was still a lot left to be desired. I thought that the voice acting for Atsu was quite flat. I did mention my grievances in the finale in the credits, but and because I did that, I'm gonna be quick about my thoughts on the game. I thought that Atsu's line delivery was a bit flat, even when times were supposed to be quite emotional. I mean, Atsu herself is the all serious, no nonsense type, but I thought that it kind of translated into just a bit of flat delivery. But and that's only and it's really only minor. You really only notice that happening when you're really focusing. So honestly, it definitely could be worse. But I mean, other than that, this game was really good. This I look at Ghost of Yote as like the single best revenge plot story. Because I've been asking myself, how in the world do you write a revenge plot and have it be good and compelling? Well, Ghost of Yote has an answer to that, and it's a good one. Because not many games, movies, books, TV shows pull it off. Last of Us 2 tried to do a revenge story, and it failed spectacularly. Now, let me tell you why Ghost of Yote is set apart as an actually really good revenge story. In the beginning of the game, spoilers, by the way, forgot to mention that. If you skip ahead now if you don't want to hear any spoilers, but I'm gonna get into some hefty stuff here. Um, in the game, Atsu, the main character, her family is killed. All but her brother. Her family is killed by what is this gang called the Yote Six. They are a group of samurai and shinobi, or um, goodness, what's the word? What do you call them? Cheapers. What are they called? They're samurai without a master. What are they called? Ronin, right? Jeepers. My brain is fried today. Can't you tell? So these groups of people form together to make what's called the Yote Six, and they're all under this one guy named Saito. Atsu swears her whole life saying, I am going to kill every member of the Yote Six, and then once that's done, I'm gonna just end my own life. That's what she says at the very beginning. But as time goes on, that ends up becoming I'm gonna kill all the members of Yote Six, and then I'm just going to kind of just live alone. But by the end of the game, when she meets um dude, I don't even remember her name. She was supposed to be the Kitsune, the old Kitsune, Kiku. When she reunites with her brother again, she realizes that she has so much to live for that the fight now changes to instead of I'm going to kill the Yote Six for myself, I'm gonna do it for them. I'm still gonna go through with my revenge, but I'm not gonna do it with the same motives. I'm going to alter my motives and I'm instead going to fight for the people I love. This is how you write a revenge story. It shows that the revenge is not what's actually completing her, it's actually the people she loves, the people she wants to be around. And around the end of the game, she gets sorry, jeepers. At the end of the game, she gets challenged in that very way because she decides to pursue revenge over um she pursues revenge over her family, which ends up almost costing her family. And it was then that she realizes this is not why I fight anymore. This is not about myself anymore. I'm not fighting to save my parents. I'm not fighting to avenge my parents. I'm fighting for the people that I love that are alive, that are keeping me going. That's what it becomes. That's what Atsu fights for. Seeing that and the realization that I had that that's what's happening was, frankly, was spectacular. So, really good on the writers of Ghost of Yote for writing such a good revenge story, because let me tell you, they are not easy to write. It's hard to do a revenge story that feels complete, because at one point, you don't want to waste the person's time by not doing the revenge. Last of Us 2. And you also don't want it to be like they did it, now what? Like I finally got revenge. It's like my whole life's been leading up to this point. Now what? Because then it's a hollow victory. This is really that the happiest medium you can get. And even though I myself am opposed to revenge just really in general, I feel like for a fictional story, this is the best thing you can go with. Aside from what is my opinion, the best revenge story, which is no revenge story. But if you have to do one, this is really the route to go. I really love this game, but I do love Ghost of Tsushima better. I really do love Ghost of Tsushima better. Ghost of Tsushima really had the ending that almost made me cry, but overall, you should play Ghost of Yote. It's really fun. Next up, Still Wakes the Deep. My friend was begging me to play this game. He said that this was one of the greatest games he has played in a long time. The ending made him cry. The game, the story, the setting, all of it is just top notch. So I'm like, okay, let me see what the fuss is about. So I played it. Now, even though I would say to my friend, you're hyping it up a little too much, I definitely see where he's coming from. The game is incredible, to say the least. Still Wakes the Deep is a fantastic game. The honestly the setting and the graphics are just stunning. The stealth mechanics is are just really fun. There was hardly a dull moment in this game, and Still Wakes the Deep understood something crucial that not many horror games like to employ, and that is really the art of suspense. You see, you could walk into a dangerous room, and you can know right off the bat this something's going to go down in here. When games have like a danger room or a place that is dangerous, or if they stock you up before something and you know something's about to go down, and you're right, you're correct every single time, it's kind of not scary. Still Wakes the Deep is different. I could walk into a incredibly dangerous looking room and nothing happens. I could walk 3 rooms after that. I could do a whole level. Nothing happens. I'm just walking around the ship and I'm doing normal things. Even though I can hear noises of like roars, screams. I can see these crazy visuals, but nothing will actually come out and attack me. But then, in the middle of just me doing my activity, something will just jump out at me and I have to run away into a safe zone. That's what true suspense is. I could not get a read for the life of me of what in the world the scares were, what they were going to look like, where they were going to pop out. That's what truly incites fear in a person whenever they play a horror game. Is whenever a game can really pull off that kind of suspense. And Still Wakes the Deep was truly a really good example of how to write suspense in a game. So that's probably my biggest praise that I have for it. What I don't have praise for, and again, it's very minimal things. There was a there was a plot line with the main character and his boss that was hinted at and then never returned to. I kind of wish I knew what was that about. I never got to really experience the main character's name is Kaz, his life before the ship. I kind of wish I knew. We get little glimpses, but I feel like I only got a surface level view of the character throughout the game. It's a short game, but it's a pretty one. It's a pretty one. It's a pretty good one too. Next up is Dead Cells. Dead Cells is really hard. Go figure, right? Everybody's difficulty game list, Dead Cells is always on it. This was 7 parts and many days apart. But oh boy, Dead Cells was really fun. And it was the very first game that I ever hooked up a controller to play. Very first goes to Dead Cells. So that was pretty cool. Dead Cells is another roguelike. And kind of like Hades or The Binding of Isaac. Both games I played previously. Dead Cells is very similar, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the luck factor for the weapons you got. It made each run feel dynamic. The bosses were incredibly intuitive. Even if I absolutely melted through the second one very quickly, it's still pretty fun. I don't think it's as good as Hades, though. I think Hades is better as a roguelike, but some are pretty good. Nothing much to write home about. Next up is the Elden Ring DLC, the Elden Ring Night Rain DLC. I had a lot of funny moments in it, but it's really only 2 bosses, and it's just an extension of Elden Ring Night Rain. It added 2 new characters, though. I never tried them, but I've seen my teammates try them quite a bit. And they're pretty cool, especially the Undertaker. The Undertaker is quite the interesting character. And her quest is equally as interesting. But overall, that's really it. I think it's a pretty good extension. Next up, Little Nightmares 3. This game was kind of disappointing. It was I talked about it in depth in these 2 parts, somewhere in these 2 parts. I said that Little Nightmares has kind of fallen off since the second game because Little Nightmares is really truly scary whenever you're alone, which only happens in the first game. Little Nightmares 3 places so much emphasis on co-op, and the AI of the other person, if you're playing a single player like I did, the AI of the other person is quite stupid, which was actually it's actually made for quite a fun game because I ended up having more fun just seeing how far could I leave my teammate behind. And on some occasions my teammate would just get stuck and refuse to move until I was like actively near them for no reason. So it was kind of goofy. It was just overall a pretty mid game. I didn't feel much playing it. And in fact, I even got a few comments saying, "Why aren't you talking much?" And I'm like, "There's just nothing to talk about." I mean, I didn't say that in the comments. I don't really reply to comments. I know I should, but I usually just don't know what to say. So I just usually stick a heart there and a like. But I didn't know what to talk about. It was kind of unstimulating, and there would just be long periods of silence where I'm just like, okay, what do I do now? The most action he ever got was really at the ending, and that was pretty much it. So you should play the first Little Nightmares. Two and three are just not improvements, really. It tried to lean too much into the co-op, and unless you played multiplayer, playing single player just felt kind of dull. Next up is Mizou. This game was dark. I played it literally the days before Christmas. It's a dark, very dark game. Mizou was I kind of expected to be another just like just another horror RPG like Corpse Party was. And even though it did have a lot of similarities to Corpse Party, it takes place in a school. It's a curse that revolves around some girl's death, yada yada yada. Mizou is quite different because there are so many ways to die. In just the span of this 2 to 3 hour puzzle game, there are hundreds of possible deaths that can just happen out of nowhere. And it's quite silly. Like, I had to be careful of every step I took, just make sure I didn't trigger any elaborate traps. Like, here's one of the ways you died in the game. I'm gonna say this with as much of a serious face as I can. You're walking in a room. It looks like a kind of like a rundown laboratory. There's computers, there's all sorts of devices on two tables with some test tubes of glass with monsters in it. The way to die has nothing to do with the monsters in the tubes like you'd think it would. If you Once you walk through, this old phone will start to ring suddenly. Your character will then be so startled that he jumps back, hits the wall, passes out, and dies. I wish I was making this up. That is legitimately a way that you can die in this game, and there are many more just like that in Mizou. It makes for quite the interesting game. And I will say there are even more interesting characters. Even if most, if not all, of the characters have some sort of deep secret that you'd rather wish you didn't know about, especially the teacher. But overall, very fun horror RPG, very short too. Next up is another short game I played, Worldless. Honestly, this was the perfect game to end the year on. It had that sort of conclusion, it had that sort of concluding post climax kind of vibe to it. I don't know. This year has been quite strange. It's been quite strange for a lot of people. And Worldless really felt like the game to just kind of wind down on. This was another game where I had to hook up my controller for because this game said it was literally required. The only thing I really had to complain about was the ending. It just happened, like out of nowhere. I didn't get a final boss and nothing. I just waltzed right up to the final boss. I couldn't even deal any hits to it, and then the game was over. I'm like, what? That's it? I'm sure there was another ending that I missed. Like, I'm almost positive of that fact. because genuinely, there's no way that the game ended like that. I still don't believe it, to be honest. But regardless, the game was overall pretty intuitive. It did feel quite sluggish at times, but where Worldless really killed it was the visuals. Oh my gosh, the visuals were stupid awesome. And if I ever make a video game, I want the people on this development team to do my visuals because oh my gosh, it was amazing. So if you're a fan of games that have that otherworldly ethereal vibe, oh boy, Wordless is for you. And then to cap it all off, Clubstep Studios' best moments comp 17, which was, if anything, it was more like a best moments of the year. I usually make a few best moments compilations throughout the year, like two or three, but I only did one. So best moments comp 17 is my longest one yet, and it quite literally is just the best moments throughout the whole year. Because if you remember, comp 16 was right before my channel rewind, and now it's happening again. I tried to be witty with my edits this time. I made jump cuts in very specific places to try to be funny. I'm sure you can notice that if you watch it, or you might just be confused. Either or. I tried to be funny. I don't know how well of a job I did, but I tried to. Honestly, though, this year had a lot of good games. Silk Song, Ghost of Yotei, Visage was truly a terrifying masterpiece. Night Rain was really fun co-op. Doom the Dark Ages had some really innovative combat. Corpse Party was just really disturbing, but in like disturbing in like the way that was like, oh, this is messed up. But I still want to know what happens next. Nine Souls had really innovative combat. It's truly a hidden gem. Me side was really fun. Stardew Valley gave me a new perspective. Dying Light 2 was a really good sequel. Same with Phoenix Wright 2. The Witcher was, despite being so old, which I usually am worried about old games, but like I said, they show their age, still incredible. And Bioshock Infinite took a really interesting new spin on the Bioshock series. So that's it. Those are all the videos I made this year, all the games I played, and the end of this year's Channel Rewind. So, I hope to see you all in 2026, where I have some big plans coming very soon. I'll see you all next year. Goodbye.